was certainly a life-changing event for all of us. And I think that what I was saying when I mentioned
Every time you get on the water, or every time a wave comes up,
yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I was fishing a week the next weekend after that happened. And I think, that same year, it was much more common or much more frequent where that feeling would come back, where a wave would lift up my stern or I would see a wave and my stomach would just sort of get lighter. My stomach would get higher in my chest and my throat. And that has gone away. And it wasn't very much a fear, much of an awareness.
Right.
And I think that, but I was talking about whether I'm comfortable talking about it. It was a positive experience. We all made it home. I think that, God forbid, a different outcome happened, I'm sure it would feel differently about recounting it. I can't really imagine if we hadn't brought everyone home. Well, I don't even like to think about even what that would feel like.
Right.
I don't know whether I'd be able to be out there again. I don't know.
Right.
And it's gotten with time a little bit less visceral. I remember for about a year afterwards, for a few months afterwards, whenever it was dark, like so I was lying in bed and closed my eyes, I was back under the boat. I had a nightmare for a while of my kids giving their graduation speech from high school and it was all about not knowing their dads. That sucked. I've always felt lucky. I'm lucky, even when I'm struggling, I'm lucky to be struggling.
Right. So well said. And for folks that aren't familiar with the water, familiar with what happened, where were you exactly, and what were the sequence of events? Not.
Yeah, I'm right where I'm going in about 2 hours of the charter. I don't tell them about the story till the way home.
Right.
So I was out in between Smiths Point and Tuckernuck, about a half mile south of that opening, and there's this sort of, we call it the outer bar. It's a sandbar. It's about a horseshoe-shaped sandbar that extends sort of south from Tuckernuck, turns sort of east, and then comes back and kind of loosely connects with Smiths Point. So we were on the North Shore. It was a stiff southwest wind. So the North Shore was a nice lee. It was beautiful, and that was our plan. Saying that tucked into that off Dionis 40th pole area. But there was just no fish. We fished for about 2 hours. I didn't get a bite. And I was pretty sure that there was some fish out in the outer bar there. And I said, let's go poke out. Let's see how it is. And we do that often. We'll say, if it's a choppy day, if it's a windy day, we'll go take a look at something. And usually very happy to say, that doesn't quite look, and usually it's not a safety thing. Usually it's a comfort thing.
Right.
Yeah. Usually our boats can take it and this, but I'm not going to make anyone uncomfortable because that's not that fun.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And so, but the guys wanted to try it when we went out, and it was certainly manageable. It was 3 or 4 foot waves out there, and breaking on the rip, and we went out, and I sent my dad a text, and in hindsight, I think this text is something that saved our lives. I just texted him simply, "Hey, head into the opening, nothing on the North Shore." And that, hours later, when he was looking for me, gave him a place to look, which I think, it's amazing to look back. If I hadn't sent that text, he'd be, my brother-in-law, Jason Griswold, actually, when my dad went out and he took his little park ground, he combed the North Shore in case we doubled back. But if I hadn't sent that text, I don't think they'd ever even think that we were out on that, West End. And again, the biggest thing is it wasn't a huge day. And that's, I think, the biggest misconception.
Right.
That we rode in,
right.
Lights blaring into this frothy seas. It wasn't like that at all. But there were waves pick up on that rip. So the idea on that rip is where there might be 6 to 8 footers. Breaking on the rip, maybe 4 or 5. I'm a fisherman, so take all my numbers with a grain of salt. But waves surfable waves breaking on the bar. We keep our boat 100 feet away from that in the 2 or 3 foot rollers and cast in.
Right, of course.
So we did one pass and we caught a fish and it was great and they were happy. And then we did, it was near the end of our trip though. It was about, the times, it was about 2:15, 2:30. It was 11 a.m. trip. So we were going to be in by 3. And, as I said, it was a cold day. So they were psyched to catch a fish. Finally went out. They went out for one more pass. They said, let's do one more pass. And I remember we went in and I turned and, I'm trying to get all the directions right, but I remember I was looking and we had another fish to hit. And I was, fish. And your job when you're a captain is to look for fish and look at the water.
Right.
So then when you have a first mate, he's in charge of doing this sort of rotation in the lines. And we were on our mid-range boat, so it was just me. We don't have a striker there. And so, but mainly it was choppy enough that I was, I was pretty much just watching the fish the water. And then I looked and I turned to the right and I saw, I swear it was it was a 12-foot wave coming in. And, so even if I'm exaggerating, it was 8 or 10 foot, it was a wall of water. It was as if it was a sea of cottages with a skyscraper standing there. I mean, it was just unbelievable, and I really need to get that across. And it wasn't, we were dodging waves all day and one caught us. It was just out of nowhere. It wasn't a rogue. I mean, rogue waves are actually more predictable than people think. You can see them coming together. This was a set. It turned out I couldn't see the two behind it, but it turned out to be a set of 3 foot, a set of 3 waves that were 10 plus feet tall. Something I learned from that experience is you can find a 12-foot wave in a sea of 3.
Right.
And I think I'd always see maybe a 6-footer pop up or this, but I'd never seen something so discordant with the sea around it. And we're still about 20 feet away from it was coming in. So I just said, I said, hold on. And I just, hit the engine and turn towards it because that's what you want to do. The worst thing to do is have one of those catch on the side.
Right.
Even from behind, people think surfing's fun, but if you surf in a boat, you lose control.
Right.
And it turns you and flips you. That's how the majority of people flip in a wave. So I turned towards it, and we floored it. And I still remember the feeling. I'm in a 23-foot boat, and I was climbing the face of the wave, and the entire boat was on the face of the wave. And it was just, it doesn't mean it's a 23-foot wave. It's a slant height that we were on, but it was just a monster of a wave. And we got over the top, and I remember it sort of came down hard. It was a hard one. I mean, two guys fell down. Rod was on the deck, and then I looked up, and there was another one rowing in. And so I get the boat back around, and I get over it, and barely get over it. And so let's say the bow of the boat's 12 o'clock, and so we face directly into the wave, and then we kind of are levitated a little bit on the wave because we land about 4 o'clock. We spun about 100 degrees to the right, and this time there's a foot of water in the boat, and one of the rods is broken. It was probably probably the worst wave I'd taken in a long time. The waves catch us sometimes. But as I remember that, the big boats, it's, you'll get wet and maybe a bump, but, and so I immediately looked up, and I remember, so now we've rotated now about, until 5 o'clock from the wave. And this is when I knew, this was the scariest thing I've seen. By the time, I sort of braced myself, looked back, the third wave was already breaking over the port quarter, the back left side of our boat. And the worst situation you'd be is when the only option you have is to run from it. And I still question whether I had time to, hindsight's wonderful to have, whether I had time to turn. I don't, but it was already breaking over. And so I just pinned the engine, and I said, hold on. And we went, and I was trying to, the waves breaking, and I was running down. And one of the problems was the bar we're fishing was right here. And that's only a foot or 2 or 3 feet deep. So it's not like I had one escape route, and I was going for it. And till the moment we did, and I thought we were going to make it out. I'd never not made it before.